You're listening to the Intuitive Souls podcast. I am your host, Sarah Caruso, and this podcast is designed to educate, inspire, and enlighten. Let's wake up together. Hey, Lightworkers, and welcome to the Intuitive Souls podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. I'm so excited that the universe led you here. If you are an OG and you keep on coming back and listening and sharing the love and, giving this podcast to people that might be interested in it, you know I love you. You know how grateful I am for each and every download, each and every comment, each and every review. And you guys make this so easy for me. And I know I say this a lot, and I know I basically say this in every episode, but you have no idea how much your support means to me. It makes this so much easier for me. So, if this podcast is helping you, if it's bringing you value and tools and tips and tricks that help you along your spiritual path, if you could take a moment from your really busy muggle life and head on over to iTunes and write a review, I would deeply appreciate it. And as a thank you, I would love to give you access to one of my Udemy or Skillshare courses for free, just as a thank you, because you guys are awesome. But before you do that, what I need you to do is you head on over to iTunes. I need you to screenshot the review before you submit it, because that's the only way I will know that, you in fact did it. And I need you to send that screenshot to me. My email is erusso, ERUSSOPMRP @gmail.com. It's also going to be in the show notes for you as well. And we will set something up so you get access to a course for free. So now that is all said and done, in today's episode, I asked Jeni Juranics, this amazing psychic medium in Canada, to come back on. She was actually on a show, I believe in October, and we had such a great conversation. And believe it or not, I actually checked the downloads. I forgot to tell her this, so I know she's listening. So Jeni, I checked the downloads, and yours is one of the most highly downloaded episodes, probably because we get super vulnerable, and she talks about her mediumship, and we just talk about mediumship in general. And this episode is no different. We talk about being highly sensitive in a chaotic world, with everything going on in the world right now. I felt like it was a conversation that needed to happen. And I'm so happy that, it was a conversation with Jeni, because she has a great way of just putting it out there for you and giving her the tools, giving you guys the tools and the tips and the tricks that help us cope. Because when you realize you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, that sensitivity doesn't go away. You know what I mean? There are going to be times where you're going to deal with anxiety and overwhelm. And both of us have found some really powerful tools that help us deal with that. And we're sharing it in this episode. So enjoy it, guys. I hope that, you guys take away these great tools that we talk about, because again, I said, these are the tools that I personally use that help me, and as well as her. So enjoy it, and I will see you next week. You guys, today I asked my amazing, amazing friend, Jeni Juranics, to come back on. She was actually on the show, in October?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And we had such a great conversation, and she told us a little bit about her journey, and she is a psychic medium in Canada, but today I felt called to talk about being sensitive in a chaotic world. And I feel like Jeni, being a very highly sensitive person, was the perfect person to come on and talk to me about this. So basically, tell me a little bit about your empath story, your highly sensitive story. When did you realize that you were different?
Oh dear. It's I feel like it's a long story that kind of has all these twists and turns and ups and downs, right, for any empath, because sometimes it's not something you realize in one moment or overnight kind of thing. But for me, I would say that probably when I got pregnant with my first child, there were a lot of like red flags, let's say, that I was sensitive, maybe a little bit different than everybody. And of course, there's all the childhood stuff too, right? That looking back, I can see now from where I am.
Hindsight, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I would say pregnancy really made it obvious to me in a lot of ways.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I was always highly sensitive, but this is the thing, like we're 80s babies. And this was not a topic that was hot in the 80s and the 90s when we were growing up. It was very not known. You know what I mean? Obviously, there were people that knew about this, but it was not as hot of a topic. So I think both of us went through our lives being highly sensitive and not being aware of it. You know what I mean? And for me, it was so funny that you said that because I realized that I was a highly sensitive person when I was breastfeeding my second child. And I was on Amazon Prime and I came across the documentary, The Sensitive One, The Untold Story, with Alanis Morissette on it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was just watching it and I was like dumbfounded. I was like, wow, this is a thing. Like this is a thing. And that's when I realized like I need to do more research on this because this is 20% of the population is highly sensitive or empathic. And it can really be a struggle. You know what I mean? Like what were some of the things that gave you red flags that maybe you were sensitive?
Well, I think other than my parents telling me, you know, in my 20s, I remember my mom made the comment that, oh, when you were little, we could never discipline you because you would just cry so much. And it just seemed to hurt your feelings so much more than it would hurt your brothers. Right. And I never really got that. I always just thought like, oh, you just don't understand me. And that's why, you know. But that's another red flag right there, right? Never feeling understood. So, and that's been something that I've experienced my whole life. I think, you know, back to the pregnancy part, the red flags there were just appointments. Luckily, I had midwives, so my appointments were not super invasive, but I just became aware of everybody's almost unspoken
stuff.
And people touching me and people around me. And I think, you know, maybe I went into protective mode also because I was carrying a child. So it just amped it up. And I think, you know, that's when a lot of it started for me that there's more going on for sure. Right. I think, you know, in teenage years, the red flags were there that I had a hard time sitting in a classroom with a bunch of students because it just was overwhelming that everybody's in there. They're all thinking, they're all breathing, they're all moving, they're all like, you know, they've all come from different homes and had different experiences that morning before they came to school. Like looking back, all that stuff was there. And so no wonder I was trying to navigate that with behaviors that weren't necessarily positive. I think that a lot of highly sensitive people, empaths, tend to reach for things that aren't necessarily good for you as a way to get through it, right? To kind of
to numb it.
Exactly. So that's probably why it took me into my mid-20s to figure it out. And then even, you know, continuing that journey into my 30s really is when it became like, okay, this is a thing now. I can believe this now.
Right.
Because I spent so much time numbing it in my teens, I think it kind of slowed down that process of identifying my own sensitivities. So
yeah, that's funny you say that because that was basically that's the story of my life. You just there's so much going on and it's like we might go into certain hobbies or certain things that aren't necessarily positive to cope with this. You know what I mean? And for me, it was like, it was isolation. Like that was a big thing for me. Like I didn't go to my prom. I didn't go to my graduation. Like I just couldn't even bear that. That's a lot of energy. You know what I mean? That's
I didn't go to my graduation either.
Right. It was just too much for me. And looking back now, it's like, I don't know. I didn't have the greatest high school experience. So it's not, I don't regret not going, but it was like, if I had the tools that I have right now, my life would have been very different growing up.
I feel the same way. I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities. Perhaps learning more about myself and what I'm capable of, finding things that I am passionate about at a younger age would have been great. I mean, I don't regret it, and I am where I am, and I'm thankful for where I am now. You're right. If we were raised or if we were taught about our sensitivities, that this is a real thing, that there are other ways of navigating the world, we would have had a different experience for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because it's true. And now I feel as though maybe that, 20% of the population is maybe even higher, I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny because I do my TikToks and I have stuff, I have small little videos where I talk about being sensitive and signs and traits and stuff like that. And like the amount of comments that I get that are like, so that's what I am. Like, everything that you just said is on point. Like there's not, and I'm like, just educate yourself. You just got to educate yourself. There's so many resources out there. So like there's, I'm a big fan of books. So I always say The Highly Sensitive Person. It's a very well-known book. And then the documentary I said, are there like any other ones that I'm missing?
Yes, the one that I stumbled upon maybe 5-ish years ago. So there's The Highly Sensitive Person, but then there is another author. I haven't actually read her book, but she's got a lot of YouTube videos, and I think I stumbled upon a podcast that only had like 4 episodes. But her name is Heidi Sawyer, and she has The Highly Sensitive Intuitive Person. Was super fitting for me because it brings in that intuitive aspect, right? The psychic.
Yeah.
Who is not only highly sensitive, but kind of feeling as though there are messages or information coming during those sensitive times as well. So she talks a lot about what I found was super fascinating was that a lot of people who are highly sensitive, intuitive people have had some sort of childhood trauma. And so it will kind of turn on those senses, right? The psychic senses, the intuitive senses as a protective measure. And so I thought that was interesting. And then I've also, any other books? No, I feel like that was enough for me when I just listened to the podcast, a couple episodes there. It connected enough dots that I could just accept it and be like, okay.
Right. See, that's just, you don't have to go crazy like I do, where you have to read every single book and like know all the things. But like sometimes just one book, one podcast episode, one is going to give you enough to help you on your journey. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, so I have learned something that really, really helps me is visualization. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of things that I do, like where I will literally, I do it basically all the time at Walmart, where I'm like walking, because I don't go to Walmart often. I don't. But when I do, you know what I mean? Like you got to go sometimes. So when I'm walking in Walmart, for some reason, the energy in Walmart is very dense.
Yeah.
It's a lot more dense than Target is.
It is. It totally is.
Yeah. And so that's why I don't really go that often. But, there's a lot of times where you're just, doing what you have to do. And all of a sudden I will start just getting anxious and uncomfortable. And I will literally, I'm always protected by Archangel Michael, but I will literally put another layer of protection. and almost visualize any sort of negative or stagnant energy within my aura being pushed out at the same time. And I can't tell you how that helps me. You know what I mean? And we also have to remember that, like, when I teach my students, I say, put your hands up. I'm showing you on because we're on Zoom right now, guys. So my hands are up, and I say, you have to put your hands up and then put them to the side. And everyone does this in my workshops. And then all of a sudden, everyone's touching each other. I'm like, your energies are clashing right now. And if you're a highly sensitive person, you're picking up that person's energy. So what happens if that person just lost their job, is grieving, is in a narcissistic relationship? Now you have that energy within your auric field. That's why grounding and protection is so important when you are a highly sensitive person. You know what I mean?
So true.
So what does your grounding and protection ritual look like?
Meditation, I would say intent, but you know what's interesting is it's kind of evolved over the years to now where I feel as though I'm at this place that I don't necessarily need to protect myself. Grounding to me is a super quick intention, you know, my feet are on the floor, which is the earth, and I'm here and I'm safe, you know. To me, the way that my mind works now, I must have trained myself to be able to do that quickly. And I think a lot of highly sensitive people need to be aware of is sometimes we aren't clear on our own boundaries with our own self and how we are absorbing someone else's energy and experiences. And a lot of times I notice with the people that I work with that it comes down to people pleasing in one way or another, where we want to take on somebody's troubles. And sometimes it's an unconscious thing, right? We aren't aware that we're doing that until it's energetically hitting us in some negative way. So when I realized that for myself, that I can't help everybody in every moment, that I have to protect my own energy, that being a people pleaser doesn't help anybody. When I stopped doing that, I felt the world kind of left me alone in a sensitive person way, you know?
Yeah. So no, that's so important. That's total. Yeah. Boundaries is a big thing because I think as highly sensitive people or empaths, we hold a lot of empathy for others.
Yeah.
And that is crucial.
That's the mindfulness, right? Because a lot of times highly sensitive people, when they're experiencing that kind of negative absorption of somebody else's experience, we could have stopped it. We could have put the boundary up before it got to the point of being super overwhelmed. So it's like you said, you know, you're in Walmart. Now you know, oh, I'm getting that anxious feeling. This is my reminder to do whatever I need to do, because I think it's different for everybody.
Right.
This is my reminder now, instead of 20 minutes from now or an hour from now when I get home and I'm having a bit of a breakdown, or I'm so overwhelmed and exhausted because I didn't do that. So it's mindfulness. You gotta have your own reminders.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's so funny that you brought up boundaries, because we've worked with a lot of other mediums through workshops and everything like that. And I've noticed a trend where there's a lot of mediums out there that have problems with boundaries, where spirit will show up unannounced, they'll bother them, they'll, show up in places where they shouldn't be showing up and all of that stuff. And what I've learned is that when that happens to a medium, they have problems with boundaries in their personal life as well.
Yep, absolutely.
And this is why when doing this work and being open and being, a healer of any sort, you have to have boundaries, and you have to have hella good boundaries, because it will affect you and it will affect your quality of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes that boundary is with yourself, right?
Right.
I will not allow myself to take on this energy.
Right.
It's something that you have you will not cross your own boundary. Because that's, it's one thing to say, you can't treat me like that. But if you allow it and you kind of almost unconsciously seek saving someone, and taking on an energy, well, who's to blame?
Yeah. Tough love.
I know.
Tough love over there.
A lot of it comes down to, as well, I think, being okay with who you are. We don't, when you're discovering you're a highly sensitive person, there's usually, I find, and I found for myself, that there's almost this period of, okay, how do I change myself? How do I make this go away? How do I stop being this way then? Because obviously it's showing up in a negative way. But training yourself to not give a shit about what people think of you. If you don't want to put yourself in a situation, don't do it. If you don't want to go to the gathering, the party, out, to the restaurant, to the bar, whatever it is, if it doesn't feel good to you, you don't want to do it, don't do it. And learn to respect yourself and trust that what anybody else thinks of you is none of your business. Mm-hmm. That's a Wayne Dyer thing there. I love it when he says that.
I love Wayne Dyer.
I know.
I love him.
It's true. What other people think of you is none of your business. And the best way to protect your energy is to build that up. And so the people pleasing, the boundaries, and the what people think of you, they're both sides of the scale. Right. So
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think when you learn the art of not giving a shit, mm-hmm. God, does your life change.
I know. It really does. Especially for sensitive people.
Right. Because I think that like a tendency that sensitive people hold is that we want to be liked. We want to help people. We enjoy being around people. We just absorb the energy of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? I love talking to people and I love learning about their story and stuff like that. It's learning how to create boundaries within yourself where you're not bringing that home with you.
Yeah.
And that book, what is it? The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
I haven't read it, but yeah.
It's good. It's really, really good. And it's very true. Especially when you're in this spiritual realm, if you're offering readings and stuff like that, like I feel like a large portion of a healer's journey is learning to be okay with who you are. Mm-hmm. Learning to love yourself unconditionally and not giving a shit what other people think about you, whether they are holding, limiting beliefs about the work you're doing or whatever the case may be. And I think once we really just truly stop giving a shit, mm-hmm. that's when your magic starts to show. That's when you start attracting your ideal client. That's when you start attracting abundance and manifesting whatever it is that you want to manifest. So that is so freaking true. Absolutely. And guys, like I would highly suggest like listening to Wayne Dyer. He's one of my teachers. Every time, like I don't wear makeup much, but when I am putting makeup on, he's on YouTube in the background and I just listen to what he has to say because my God, is he a prophet? You know what I mean?
Simple stuff though, right? Like it's common sense stuff that he says where you're just like, that's such an easy mindset to adopt for sure.
Exactly. I mean, totally. So if there's someone listening right now, obviously there's going to be someone listening that is like, okay, I definitely think I'm an empath. What are 3 pieces of advice that you would give them?
3 pieces of advice for an empath. I would say sleep. I would say alone time. And fun. Because we can get very much in our heads. I think a lot of sensitive people or empaths will kind of have a lot of shameful thoughts about themselves where they feel like, they're not good enough or that they shouldn't be this way, that kind of stuff. don't beat yourself up if you indulge once in a while in some yummy food, or, you know, something that really just makes you feel your body, because I find a lot of sensitive people love food. It's very grounding. It's a full experience, right? You're tasting, you're smelling.
Mm-hmm.
I would, you know, that's more than 3 things, but
keep going, because I'm going to add mine too. I think my biggest thing is balance, cultivating balance throughout your personal, your work life, and everything like that. And boundaries is huge too. I mean, we could probably write a book.
Totally. Balance is a hard one. And I think I've been really thinking about that a lot lately. Like, what does balance for me look like? You know, I've got 2 kids. I'm super busy, you know, in my mediumship work, and then the house to look after and all of that stuff. I tend to be all in with one thing and the other things get neglected. And so I've been asking myself a lot lately, well, what does balance mean then? And I'm wondering if it is possible to be in balance all the time. If there is, you know, I feel like I want balance to be something that's important, but I also think that you got to go with the flow and just be present and do what's there that day. And then this is where the fun comes in, right? Is not beating yourself up.
Right. I think and I do want to state this. There's no such thing as perfect balance and harmony. Okay. Mm-hmm. Life is crazy, but I want, the way I kind of look at it is like a seesaw, right? Mm-hmm. Where, you know, sometimes the workload's going to get heavy. Sometimes the stuff at home is going to get heavy, but making sure like one of them doesn't fall to the bottom is balance. It's never going to be perfect balance, but you know, it is true. You're so spot on, because it's like balance looks different on everybody.
And every day, right? And every week, what you had last week will be different.
Exactly.
Next week. So
but I think being mindful, mm-hmm. you know, if you feel that energetic overwhelm coming on, because just because you realize you're an empath doesn't mean like that energetic overload isn't going to show up anymore, because trust me, it will. It does. You just have to be mindful enough to be like, okay, I'm stressed out at work. The kids are being, you know, a-holes. What can I do right now to cultivate a little bit more balance in my life? So if that means sitting in your car before driving home from work and meditating, or listening to some relaxing music, or listening to Wayne Dyer, or listening to the Intuitive Souls podcast, do that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it doesn't mean you have to go on a freaking getaway to a spa or a spiritual retreat, because life doesn't work that way. Sometimes it just means to give a little bit to yourself.
Hot chocolate. That's my thing. A warm drink. I don't drink coffee or tea or anything, and everybody always has these warm drinks, and I'm super jealous. So I drink hot chocolate any time of day, whenever I want. A warm drink is so grounding as well.
Yes.
You know,
it's a very mindful experience for me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Like that first cup of coffee in the morning, you know, that's it for me, where I literally just wrap my whole hand around it and I just feel the warmth and I just stay grounded and I hold myself within gratitude. And it just really, it's a great trick, you know, because we just go through life like slurping down coffee and not completely being within the experience. When you actually do that, my God, what a different experience it is. You know what I mean? Like we drink, you know, moms drink coffee just to survive. We don't take that couple of minutes just to be mindful and actually taste the coffee and actually feel the warmth of the mug on our hands. And it's like, that's where the magic lies. You know, I like with hot chocolate. Oh my God. I like putting caramel drizzle on it.
Whipped cream.
Yeah. Like where? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like totally. But you guys definitely follow Jeni on social media. She is on Facebook and Instagram. She is also doing online readings. She's amazing. I've witnessed it myself, so be sure to check her out. Jeni, thank you so much for coming on and talking about hot chocolate with me.